Yeah, sorry, go for it.
You guys, as Evan said, I coach the New Zealand Sevens team, and I've coached them for 18 years. And we're sitting like you every time we go into camp and we assemble as a side. We do testing and we get tested every time. So to be the best you can be and to be a top sevens player, if you're looking to go to the Olympics later on down the track in 2016, you want to make the US team next year or whatever team it may be, mate, the biggest area and the biggest part of the ingredient of being a top sevens player is you've got to be very, very fit. I'm a coach that makes all my trainings harder than any game that they'll ever play, because if you can do it here, because where I challenge you is I challenge the mental side, not so much the physical side. The guys that are the ones that don't win me tournaments are the ones that grabs the back of their hamstrings and look at the physio and walk off. The guys that really battle through the elements of when it's really tough are the players that win me tournaments. And that's the real key. It's being mentally tough, a lot of preparation, a lot of conditioning, because you've got to remember, because you come out of a 15-a-side program and you're very fit as a rugby player, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be great at the game of sevens, because it's totally different conditioning. To be good at sevens, you've got to be playing sevens and you've got to be training it. Simple as that. And so the testing out here today, yeah, you mightn't be up to the levels that I probably desire from my New Zealand Sevens players, but as long as you empty the tank, that's all I ask as a coach. You know, you give me what you've got. Don't look at the easy option, because you don't win your team tournaments. When I select players, I select on character, which is one, and we, believe it or not, our team is generally unified and we get closer when we work for each other, and we work very, very hard. I select on character, which also gives me players that are coachable, in other words, coachability, and that's a real key. It's great to have all the skill sets and be quite fit, but if you're not prepared to, you know, be challenged mentally, you're not going to be a great sevens player. There's some players that haven't got all the skills, but they empty the tank for you, and they're quite valuable, and therefore they've got the character that you want in your side. It's always not about I, it's always about we, and you must remember that. Now the big part of training also, and training the best you can train and the hardest you can train at, the big key around that is nutrition as well. And I talked about it last year when I came on the course, because I'm really ruthless when it comes to the fuel you take in before you get out to any training or play any game. And I don't know what you've eaten today or any idea, but if I'm going to get the best out of my players, it's what you've consumed and what you've eaten earlier on. Whether you've got the fuel and the energy levels to get out and give it your very, very best. So that's a real key. I'll give you an example. Up until Wednesday of a tournament, my players can never eat anything fried. Nothing fried whatsoever, because once you get the saturated fats in your bloodstream, you feel lethargic, tired, listless. Mate, you can't. I've only got to have two guys that have had hash browns in the morning for breakfast, had bacon and something like that. They will let you down. I can guarantee it. And in sevens rugby, you need 7 guys on their feet working all the time. You can't have 2 or 3 guys that are not up to the levels, that have basically haven't made the sacrifices when it comes to nutrition. They'll let you down, no question. My players get fined if they haven't got a water bottle in their hand, because hydration is massive. And when I talk about hydration, you should always have a water bottle outside of trainings and when you're in the hotel itself. And why I say that is because our guys get tested hydration-wise every day. And if the guys are under a certain level, they get fined. So they've got to be at the right levels, because if you're hydrated, dehydrated, you're gone. Listless, energy, no energy whatsoever. So that's really important. There's times when to drink Powerade, and it's when you're working really hard and you're sweating a lot. Yeah, you sip away on the Powerade, that's fine then, but outside of training and outside of games, it should be water, and only water. I say that because I had one of my fittest guys in my side. We went into a game in Scotland this year, and it was a beautiful fine day like this, and in the first half he wanted to come off, no energy, nothing whatsoever. And only did I find out later on that all he'd been drinking was Powerade. That's all he'd been drinking prior and up to the tournament on the night before the hotel game. Just too much sugar, just totally went the other way, totally lethargic, no energy whatsoever. So that's really important that you don't put too much sugar into your body as well. There's times when you need it, when you're working really hard and you're sweating, that's great, but outside that, just get into a program that you drink lots and lots of water and you're always hydrating. That's really important. All those things, quite honestly, I can tell you, nutrition wins me tournaments. And how do you feel when you go into a game, you feel good, got all the energy levels, then reflect back on, yep, I've been eating the right food. And what is the right food? From Wednesday to Saturday, our guys eating chicken, fish, all the pastas, all the veggies, all the right types of foods. Remember, nothing fried. Up until Wednesday, generally, we're looking at the red meats and that because you need protein. You don't want to lose the muscle mass that you've gained in the gym and stuff. So you still need meat, don't get me wrong. But after Wednesday to that, it's about chicken and the fishes and all cooked in the right sort of way. So nutrition, as I said, wins me tournaments. And what I get out of that is consistency and performance. That means every one of my squad of 12 players on tour, they can give me everything they've got. Because we wake up every morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, we wake the body up, we do a light 30 minutes cardio, really light stretching, then that generates an appetite, then we have a good breakfast. And what's a good breakfast? Cereals, baked beans, spaghetti, toast, that's fine. Great, no worries whatsoever. A lot of fruit, that's fine as well. It's a good breakfast. Then you go to training and I get the best out of them at training. So don't forget, guys, going into the next 3 or 4 days, that nutritionally look what you're eating before you come out to each and every training, because then you want to take what you learn here back into your towns and whatever, or your teams you're going back to play for. So that's really important.
Gordon, what's your thoughts on milk, the chocolate milk versus...
Yeah, chocolate milk and that's fine as well. We do have a nutritionist with our team, yeah, but generally all low fat. Drink all the light skim milk, because if you drink the fat milk it creates mucus, which sometimes when you're coughing up phlegm and all that sort of stuff, or you're working a lot, it's because you're drinking too much cream and too much fat milk. So where you can, skim milk or skinny milk, whatever they call it here in the US, I don't know. But that's massive, and I've no fizz, no fizzy drinks, nothing like that whatsoever. Our guys can't drink on tour whatsoever, because it's all about commitment and you want to be the best rugby player you can be. Yeah, I'm pretty ruthless on trainings and I want to get the best out of my players. Some guys that can't match up to it, they generally disappear. But if you want to play for the best team you can play for and be the best rugby player you can be, you make those sacrifices. I've got some pretty good training programs here as well, which test you mentally. A lot of them are on the rowing machine. We do lots of stuff off our feet as well. We do lots of gym stuff, which is generally high repetition stuff, explosive stuff, which is really good. You need that as well, because rugby also is now, in terms of being very, very physical, is quite huge. Very confrontational. When you've got the ball in sevens now, you want to look after it, and you've got to keep it for longer periods of time as well. So those are just some of the commitments you have to make, and some of the qualities you have to be a top sevens player. So it's all there for you. Speed is also a very good ingredient. You might be the quickest guy sitting here now, but it's not about being a good sprinter for one run in sevens rugby. It's about doing it again and again and again, and that's why you're doing a decrement phosphate test today. It's 10 40 metre sprints with it works out to about 30-second recoveries, and every one of them has got to be as fast as you possibly can. Don't cruise into it so your 9th and your 10th is as good as what your 2nd and your 3rd was. What you want to find out as a rugby player is the areas you need to work on. So you smash yourself in those 10. We're not electronically timing you here. We do in New Zealand. When my guys tested, they get timed on each one. And I'll give you an example. They sent me an All Black 4 or 5 years ago. A guy, Joe Rokothoko, and over 40 metres, he was 4.51, which is exceedingly quick. So he put him on a decrement phosphate test when he came into camp. His first 40 metres was 4.91, the second one was 4.98, his third one was 6 seconds. And you can imagine what his 8th and his 9th one was. He was hitting 7 seconds, so he was gone. He'd be no good to me in my rugby team for the simple reason he wouldn't be fit enough, because if he goes into a game and we haven't got the ball and Samoa's keeping it for phase after phase after phase, and then we finally get it because we've been defending, he's got no energy levels to run anyway. Or he has one big burst over 40 metres, he has to chase someone, and then he's gone. So it's about, and then I'll use another example. I had a guy, Eric Rush, who was 39 years of age when he stopped playing for me. He was 5 flat for a standing 40. So when he did his decrement phosphate, when he got to his 10th, it was 5.3. So every one of them, when you look at 5 flat, so it's 5.1, 5.2, he never went over 5.35. which says he's very, very fit. So that guy will be catching the sprinters after 1 or 2 minutes. So it's about your repeated speed, and that's huge. If you feel you don't have leg speed for sevens, then you get out and you work hard and you can get faster. Don't have it in your mind that you can't, because if you get out, get some specialised speed training, you can get quicker. Alright, so some guys feel, oh shit, I'll never be quick enough. Mate, you can be great at repeated speed, but you can also get quicker. And there are drills which you can actually put yourself through. So that's really important, eh? So yeah, when I talk about areas that are important to me, character, one, makes a good sevens player, because if you've got character, you're coachable. Okay, the second one is nutrition. You make some massive sacrifices. If you don't know during the week, the next 4 days, ask, and I'll tell you, quite honestly. Because we also, when we work really hard, the guys chew away lots of lollies as well, so they keep their uptake of sugar. So we have lots of sort of soft lollies and that on hand for the guys, certainly when they're looking to do training and after training as well. So getting the nutrition right, and then you've got the other side of it. Beep tests, guys, as an example, you'll do a beep test today. I know it's different. We always do our testing generally inside, internally. You're doing it outside today. Why we do it internally? So then I get consistency. You're never into a headwind. You're never got a wind behind you. So every time you do it internally when you're doing testing, is always pretty consistent in the readings that you want. So today, when you're in a beep test, because we do a beep test, and I want my guys always at minimums 13 and a half minimum. We're always around 14s, 15s. I had 3 guys on our last tour. One was 15.7, one was 15.4, and one was about 15.1. Okay, all the others, a lot of the others were 14, level 14s. The minimum was 13.2, I think. So that's great. So, you know, just when you push yourself in the beep test, work very, very hard. You guys done a yo-yo test before? You know what yo-yo is? Yeah. Yo-yo, from my perspective, now I'm not trying to preach you here, is, to me, I don't like the yo-yo for sevens rugby. Because in the yo-yo test you have a 15-second recovery. On each one you go there, back, 15 seconds, there, back. When you're playing against a good team, and any good team in sevens rugby, you can't stop for 15 seconds when you've got the ball and you're defending. It's about constantly moving all the time, laterally, backwards, forwards. So why I do the beep test, because it's continuous. Alright, so that's also really important. Okay guys, any questions guys while I've just given you that little bit of an insight?
How do you determine character?
How do you determine character? I gauge a lot of players on character by how hard they work. I certainly mean that. I also know the guys that are generally the most talented rugby players that haven't got the character, because they're a I, not a we. And I look at guys and see really empty the tank, and that to me generates a lot of character. My guys, my trainings are very, very hard, but after a training, because we only ever train once a day, and we smash ourselves in the morning, and we do all our training in New Zealand. When I say training, we smash them really hard in New Zealand, mentally, physically. When we leave the country, then it's all about doing technical, all right, building into the tournament. Because there's times to have days off. Don't get me wrong, we don't just totally smash ourselves to obliteration so we can't play. It's about getting the timing right. But you always got to work really, really hard. Just one thing guys, to be good at repeated speed, you must have a good aerobic base. No doubt Ryan will tell you that anyway. You've got to have a good aerobic base. A lot of players in New Zealand, a lot of rugby players, particularly playing the game of 15s, if I went up to them and said, could you run for 40 minutes now at a pretty good clip without resting, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't run continuously without stopping for 40 minutes. And that applies to a lot of rugby players. So when you've got that good aerobic base or that good cardio base, then you'll always do well when it comes to a decrement phosphate test or a beep test. But if you haven't built that base, it's like building a house. If you haven't built the foundations, you're certainly not going to get to what you want. So it's really important you have a good cardio base. So if you struggle out here in the decrement phosphate today, it's generally because you haven't got a good cardio base. Eh? How do you get that? Well, 4 or 5 weeks, 4 weeks before a 7th season, get out and you do lots of long runs. Build it up. Once you've built it up, all you do is top it up once a week with a recovery one. For 20 minutes, 30 minutes. All the other stuff is short, sharp stuff. You know, repeated speed stuff, because you got it. You never lose it once you got it. And especially in sevens, if you get injured, then sometimes the time you have off, you won't generally lose a lot. You can get back into it straight away. But if you're always battling to get up to those levels, you'll always struggle when you get injured. You actually never get there. Okay, guys. So yeah, so that's how it is. It's you're here. You're obviously keen sevens players. You want to be the best you can be and go as high as you possibly can in the game of sevens. I think that's awesome, because you could be running out the Olympics in a few years' time. And I think it's globally, the sport's going to be outstanding. It's great. That's why I've stuck with it. I love the game, you know, to get to a Commonwealth Games, to get to an Olympic Games, to play in World Cups and that. It's brilliant. So, but you've got to work hard. Simple as nothing easy about sevens rugby, guys. There's going to come a time though, you won't be able to do both, particularly in New Zealand. There's about 10 tournaments now in a World Series, and you just got to give the body a little bit of rest sometimes. You can't keep coming back and going straight into a 15s program. It might be just sevens for you, particularly if it goes professional in the States. Okay, so, and I don't think it would. So, yeah. So good luck, guys. I think you'll be warming up with Ryan, no doubt, when you get over there. But remember what I said, if you are injured, make sure you do go and see the physio. But don't think I don't want to walk out of this because I'm being seen as weak. There are some guys that I get to know a lot that generally look for the easy option, and they will pull out of a hard training, and they're not really crook, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm coming from. I talked about the rowing machine. I've got some really good programs here. As an example, with my guys, we do a lot of 8-500s on a Concept 2 rowing machine with minute recoveries, and every one of them, we do them around about 140, 145, 500 metres, and you do it looking to do 8. We do lots of them as well, because great off the feet stuff, but great mentally, but great for your cardio. I mean, I can do them as well, so I know where the players should be at, because I do lots in the rowing machine, so that's pretty easy. There's another one that we call a game of golf on the rowing machine, which we do a lot of. It's over 10 holes for guys that play golf, and you do this on the rowing machine. So what it is, it's 10 1-minute rows with a 1-minute recovery. So in that 1 minute, you've got to hit out 300 metres. Hit out 300 metres, you get a par. Hit out 310, you get a birdie. You hit out 320, you get an eagle. If you hit less than 300, you get a bogey. Okay, and so my guys at an average usually finish those 10 holes at about -6, -7. So you can also, that's a great program as well. So, you know, so you can provide a lot of variation in your trainings to make it really exciting and make it good. It's not always about on the track and just, you know, thrashing yourself. Look at different ways in which you can do it. Power cleans in a gym. Do half your body weight. I've got a 1-bar program with 30-second recoveries. You know, you'd like to 10 power cleans, just cleans with a 45 kg weight. Okay, 30-second recovery, another 10, you're doing 8 sets with 30-second recoveries. I mean, that's an overall explosive, that's ideal for sevens. Not too heavy, not going to say you're going to stuff your back up or get injured. There's lots of different other programs and ways you can get very, very fit, eh? I think it's important too that we warm up really well over here. I know there's lots of guys here that don't know each other, and I think it'd be great if you could have those tags on during some part of the day, because I'd like to call you by your first name. If you've got a nickname, I think put it on there. That's how you want to be called by, known by. Also think that when we put you into different grids and different teams, you actually get to know that guy pretty well. Because I'll never remember all of you guys. Fuck, I'm 50 years of age now, guys. I fucking memory's fading. Yeah. So, okay, so enjoy the next 3 or 4 days, but work hard, because it's important. But make sure you get your names on there, because if I want to call someone out to demonstrate something, I want to call you by your first name, saying what's your name, what's your name. So if we can do that, eh, that'll be awesome. But we warm up really well before you get into this testing. Remember, just give it your best, that's all. You're not here to make the US team, you're here to get better as a sevens player and as a rugby player. That's the key, eh? Good luck, boys. Okay.